All right. Well, hi everyone. So I'm Vinay, and I was the launch coordinator for the Ethereum release in 2015. Joined Ethereum in late 2014. Attended DevCon 0 in Berlin, which was just the team. And I have all of the stories from the old days, although I was not there for many of the worst and craziest of those stories, which were the 2013 stories. So what I thought I'd do is a very brief summary of the prehistory of how we got to Ethereum and what happens next. Right? So everybody sort of thinks that Ethereum starts with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin, master coin, the idea of taking smart contracts and adding them to this wonderful thing that you call the blockchain. And that is true, but it's only true up to a point. Because there is a prehistory before that prehistory, which is a thing by the name of DigiGold, right? DigiGold building on top of a thing called eGold. So in the late 1990s, there is a digital currency called eGold. And eGold is account-based. They have a vault in Dubai. They've got, $160 million worth of gold, and they use it as backing for a currency, which is gram denominated. So 1 eGold token equals 1 gram of gold and the right to claim the gold out of the vaults. And that system is run by an oncologist in Florida called Doug Jackson, and it becomes quite a successful company, and they have an enormously powerful system. In 1999, you could transfer $100,000 of gold from one cell phone to another cell phone for 50 cents instantaneously. Right? A kind of performance that we still haven't recovered with the blockchain. On the back of that was created a system called DigiGold. And DigiGold was a fully tokenized version of eGold. So they did a thing that was essentially akin to a blockchain. It was more centralized, but it still had wallets, it had cryptographic tokens, and those tokens were exchangeable for eGold, and then the eGold could be extracted in the form of physical coins. I actually spent quite a bit of time using that system, and for most of the year paid my rent in gold coins. Surprising for the time period. And before that, you have PGP, right? PGP is the great granddaddy of where it all starts. Where it comes from, nobody knows. There is somebody that is said to be the person that wrote PGP, but the common understanding is it was actually leaked by a bunch of computer security people working for the American government, who kind of handed it off to somebody and said, get this out to the public, it's too important to be secret. Right? And then before that, trapdoor ciphers, which were invented in the UK, GCHQ, I want to say maybe 1977 or 1972. So there's a kind of long prehistory, the crypto before crypto. In the 90s, crypto meant secure communications. The first cryptographic revolution was the integration of cryptography into web browsers, which enabled, what did it turn on? What happened when we put crypto in web browsers? E-commerce. Right? A multi-trillion-dollar industry came from sprinkling just a little bit of cryptography into the web protocols. That allowed for the protection of credit card numbers, it allowed for the secure identification of shops. You know, all that HTTPS certificate infrastructure that tells you Amazon.com is Amazon.com, that's what we had instead of ENS. And that plus the little HTTPS padlock unlocked trillions of dollars of value. Right? That's how powerful cryptography is. The first sprinkling of crypto into the web unlocked trillions. Right? And then there was no more consumer adoption of crypto. There was no new cryptography integrated into the global ecosystem until Bitcoin. Right? And Bitcoin is commonly believed to be a response to eGold being shut down by the American government. If you think, who is Satoshi? Somewhere within 2 handshakes of the eGold organization is almost certainly where you find the origin of the Satoshi group. I have my theories, other people have theirs. Then you have the formation of the Bitcoin white paper. Everybody understands that, right? You know, it's published, nothing is ever the same again. The system spins up and gradually acquires utility and value. Critical turning points like the banking blows paid in WikiLeaks, which is the first point where a lot of people begin to get politically interested in Bitcoin. Then, why doesn't Bitcoin implement smart contracts? And that question, why doesn't Bitcoin implement smart contracts, this to me is the great religious issue of the day, right? Because if Bitcoin had said yes to smart contracts, there would not be a second system, right? All of the energy behind Bitcoin, all the energy behind Ethereum, all the energy behind everything else, it would be the single point of an enormous driven spear. And we did not get that because Bitcoin said no to progress, they said no to transformation, they said no to change. Bitcoin decided that they had evolved as far as they needed to and they were going to stay right there. And whether that is a wise strategy or not, we don't know. So we have an avant-garde, which is Ethereum, and then all the things that came after Ethereum, and then we have the old school, which is the Bitcoiners. And whether they turn out to be smart people that stuck to fundamentals or Neanderthals, too soon to tell, give it another 20 years, maybe another 50 years. When we get to Ethereum, there are 3 generations of political vision inside of Ethereum, right? There is the thing which is inherited from Bitcoin, there is the radicalized Canadians, and there is the heartless scammers. And this is the 3 great generations of what people have when they think Ethereum. So the version of Ethereum which just inherits from Bitcoin is the people that think that Ether is going to be the global currency. It's the people that think in terms of freedom to transact. It's the people that are very much about the idea of doing a kind of, direct takeover from the nation state and a direct takeover from the dollar. Right? It's basically Ethereum. It's like Bitcoin, but it's got smart contracts. The theory of change is an enormous push towards the Ether price climbs and climbs and climbs and climbs and climbs until every asset in the world is denominated in Ether. That is the kind of generation 1 political vision in Ethereum. Has everybody met people that kind of think about it that way? You don't see many of them these days, but there are a few of them. Right? Then you get kind of wave 2, and I would locate Vitalik in wave 2. These are the radicalized Canadians, right? And the kind of apex of that is a book called Radical Markets by a guy called Glenn Weil. And the sort of vision here is things like quadratic voting, right? You reduce the cost of building new social structures because you can use smart contracts to do it. Those social structures control assets. The control of assets using these new social structures enables transformation of the way society works. And you can do much cheaper experiments in evolving society because you use software to run the bureaucracy. You don't need to build a new government department, you use smart contract and that. Right? And this idea that we can incrementally improve the functioning of the world by putting more and more load on automated bureaucracy rather than attempting political transformation through the ballot box is a kind of build your way to your own utopian model. Right? And I would suggest the apex of that model is all the stuff that's coming out around network states from Balaji. There's this, I went to the network states conference in Amsterdam, and there's a huge amount of enthusiasm about building weakly state-like entities, what I would call weasels, weakly state-like entities, on the blockchain. Right? You have a cryptocurrency, you have a community, you buy a bunch of land, and you put all of that stuff together into a bundle, and it creates a sort of miniature state-like thing. Lots of enthusiasm about that, and I would say that is the apex of the radicalized Canadian vision. Right? Kind of libertarian, kind of utopian, but a lot more socialist than the kind of hardline currency-driven Bitcoin generation. And I think everybody will have seen quite a lot of action around that. The DAO people are a big part of that as well. Lots of work on DAOs, lots of work on quadratic funding, Gitcoin. All of that is in this bucket out called the radicalized Canadians. And then finally, we have a big problem in the space, which is the radicalized Canadians have been unable to fight off the scammers. Right? And I remember when the scammers arrived. Right? Our conferences went from being a bunch of nerds in various kinds of band t-shirts standing around in their big black boots yapping to each other about consensus algorithms to slick computer graphics and really impressive slide presentations and people that had been trained to speak in the Tony Robbins School of Sincerity. Right? And when those folks arrived, what you wound up with was a problem because when you had people coming to find out what Ethereum was, you had the people that understood what Ethereum was who were, generally speaking, poor presenters, and then you had the people that understood how to sell scams, who didn't really understand what it was they were selling and didn't have to. And those people went through the space like dysentery through a refugee camp. right? And I would suggest that they have destroyed 90% of the value in the Ethereum space over the last, say, 4 or 5 years. Right? I want to say that again. I would suggest the scammers have destroyed 90% of the value in the Ethereum space. Right? You wonder why the coin is floating around $2,000 rather than $20,000? The answer is Ethereum has become synonymous with fraud. Right? If you hear that your cousin has gotten super into the blockchain, do you think, my God, that's going to be amazing, or do you think they're going to lose their house and their car? Right? And that fear that we have, that being involved in the blockchain is now a bad thing, that is fear of the grifters. It's fear that people that don't really understand the technology are going to get slick marketing for a deal that should be illegal and probably is, and they're going to get ripped off for everything that they own if the scammers can manage it. And we've become so tolerant of this that the culture has terms like rug pull. Rug pull means fraud and people should go to jail. Rug pull. We have smart contracts that are perfectly capable of making it technically impossible for people to rug pull, but the general Ethereum user population are so ignorant about what the technology is and how it works, they don't even insist that the contracts are structured that way so that they cannot get rugged. Right? The entire cycle of destruction around NFTs, if there had been a single decent intellectual property license commissioned by OpenSea and attached to everything by default, right? Here's the OpenSea public license or the Bored Ape public license, anything which is going to get done on the blockchain, you have that license by default. If you want a different license, feel free to upload it, but you will have a license. If they'd done that for intellectual property, OpenSea would be the world hub for clearing intellectual property rights, and it would be doing hundreds of millions of dollars worth of transactions a month, and it would have created enormously powerful global liquid markets for IP. You would be able to literally license a Bored Ape to Disney to do a TV show, rather than the situation right now where nobody can really pin down what you buy when you buy an NFT. That is a result of a lackadaisical attitude towards the deal, because if you don't clearly define the terms, what the hell is somebody buying? Right? So I want to leave you with a thought, which is, I think that we really screwed up horribly when we decided that decentralization is what the blockchain was about. I think that was a fundamental error of judgment, and I think it is not too late to fix it. What we wanted was systems that were incorruptible. And we thought decentralized meant incorruptible, because if you gave the power to the people, the power would be used wisely. But in fact, what we've discovered is you give the power to the people that are really good at being predators on the people by taking advantage of their goodwill and their ignorance, the scammers, the grifters, right? We gave the power to the people, and then the scammers and the grifters took it right back off them again. So I think that we need to start thinking in terms of the blockchain is intended to produce incorruptible systems, right? You get exactly what you pay for, nobody gets in the way, and if they do, the crypto economics or the legals squash them like bugs. Right? And that idea of creating an Ethereum where the scammers get crushed like bugs, and you know that if it happened on Ethereum, it's a square deal and you get what you paid for, that is the future that I'm working towards creating. And that was the original vision of Ethereum. That was what we promised to ourselves that we were going to create in 2015. You go back and look at the Ethereum Foundation communications, incorruptibility is the core theme. There's a video that Gavin Wood was the kind of primary architect of, called Ethereum World Computer, produced by the Foundation in 2015, and it really has this notion of an incorruptible system. So that's what I want to leave you with, right? We have an absolute imperative to get the scammers out of the ecosystem. We have to do this or the ecosystem is going to die, and I think the focus has to be not on decentralization but on incorruptibility, because incorruptible systems can be used to identify the scammers and kick them off. Is this thing that you're doing incorruptible or not? Well, no, it's really decentralized, we don't care. Bam! Get off the blockchain, we're not going to do this. Right? So, raise the bar. Right? Demand incorruptibility. If you're going to put any money behind any project, demand incorruptibility. If you're working on a project, demand incorruptibility. Take the power away from the administrator so it's impossible to rug, use smart contracts to lock up all the value, nail down the legals, that are excellent law firms, that are fully functional now to actually get you what you want on that in very, very short timelines, right? We can make the blockchain live up to its potential, but if we fail to do it, it's going to wind up as another dead end. And I've seen 2 waves of crypto innovation wind up in dead ends. The only thing that survived from crypto in the 1990s, even though we had fully functioning digital currencies, the only thing that survived from crypto in the 1990s was e-commerce. And e-commerce did not fundamentally make the world a better place. It made it more convenient, but it did not improve it. Right? The second big wave of crypto innovation, all the stuff that happened, the first big wave, all the stuff that happened with secure communications. Does anybody feel like their communications are genuinely secure? Nope. You don't trust the software you're using, you don't trust the hardware. Most of that innovation was also lost. Right? So if we're going to make this round of crypto innovation stick, if we're going to get the power of, these are my keys, nobody else can pretend to need me and nobody else can read my comms, if we're going to make that stick, we have to change our values. Right? We have to go back to the original vision of Ethereum, we have to focus on the incorruptibility more than the decentralization, and we have to absolutely stop tolerating the scams. You see somebody on stage pitching something that you think is a scam, you let people know. I guess that'll do. Thank you.